Welcome to the Veterinary Project Podcast, episode 077.
Welcome to the show created by vets featuring absolutely no pets. This is the Veterinary Project Podcast, hosted by Dr. Michael Bugg and Dr. Jonathan Light. Our resident veterinarians have swapped out their stethoscopes in favor of microphones to bring you the Veterinary Project Podcast, a show focused on real conversations aimed to connect this amazing profession full of remarkable people. Through the sharing of collective stories and wisdom and connecting over the many unique challenges we face, we invite you to join our community of veterinary professionals leading intentional lives. And now, here are the hosts of the Veterinary Project Podcast, Dr. Michael Bugg and Dr. Jonathan Light.
Welcome back to the Veterinary Project Podcast. Exciting afternoon with Dr. Michael Bugg and Dr. Jonathan Light. Mikey, how are you?
I'm calmer than you are, Jonathan. I'm having a great day, but you seem to be exceptionally high energy as usual.
Well, you know, in business, there's good days, there's bad days. Today's a good day, and we're looking at moving forward. So I'm excited. We just finished up a great recording with Dr. Cindy Barnes. This one is one people are going to get a lot of benefit. I know we say that about every podcast. I realize that. This was a good conversation today.
It was. It's inspiring. I mean, as you'll hear, she has done a ton of stuff. Like, it's impressive.
Agreed. And only graduated from CSU in 2012, which blows my mind. Has owned a large animal practice, small animal practice, run a software company, and is now moving on to new ventures. I think I'm busy. And then I look at her world, along with having 5 kids going to vet school. Again, I've just given you the episode right there. Man, we get into details.
It was it is. I'm mind blown. I couldn't even ask questions on the 5 kids part because my mind was too blown. I'm just like, I don't know how. Like, I can't even picture it.
So true. So we're going to get into that. But before we do, because we have a lot of amazing work in this episode, tell us a little bit about your quick tip.
Oh, a quick tip for today. Well, I guess it kind of builds off of the theme of our conversation. I was looking for who this quote comes from, but I don't actually know who to give the credit to. It's not me. But there's a saying out there: most people will overestimate what they can do in 1 year and underestimate what they can do in 5 years or 10 years. And I think that fits really well with this conversation, because when you see what Cindy accomplishes in 5 years and 10 years, it'll be like, and then 5 years from now, it'll just be mind blowing, you know? So good reminder, focus long-term, good things happen.
It's a great quick tip, Mike. And the theme of today, and especially in speaking about her debt and what it took to overcome and what that looked like, we go into the mental state of having educational debt and carrying that forward. I think you nailed it correctly, and such a positive message coming from Dr. Barnes. So.
Yeah, and the other piece, and you'll pick this up when you listen to the episode, is it's the 5 years, the 10 years, going in one direction, right? Like, and certainly things can change, right? You can go from large animal to small animal, but the theme and like what's driving you stays consistent. You can see people where after a year, they're like, okay, this isn't working. We need to blow it up, and I'm going to switch, and I'm going to go over here, and we're going to try something totally different. And, sometimes you give up too quick.
Words of wisdom from our philosopher of the day. What else do I say? Let's get into it. Dr. Cindy Barnes graduated from Colorado State University in 2012 with 5 kids in tow. Today, all 5 kids are married, and she is the proud grandmother to 9 grandchildren and more on the way, she said. In 2015, she founded Northern Arizona's first 24/7 emergency animal hospital. As a practice owner, she realized that the practice management programs available in the market were antiquated, time-consuming, and anything but user-friendly. She made it her mission to create a modern, user-friendly, cloud-based practice management software program that anyone could use on day one. This was the genesis of Shepherd Veterinary Software, founded in 2016. Dr. Barnes self-funded Shepherd until 2019, when Synergy Pet Group partnered with her to help grow the platform to where it is today. Although Dr. Barnes is no longer the CEO of Shepherd, She remains an integral part of the company's future while continuing to create new ventures in veterinary medicine to help spur the next generation of veterinary professionals onto the same success she's enjoyed. Get in your seat, get the seatbelts strapped in, and get ready for a great episode with Dr. Cindy Barnes. Cindy, it is a pleasure to have you on our podcast. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon.
Absolutely. I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
This is going to be a wide-ranging conversation and a place where, without a doubt, our 35 minutes together is going to go by very quickly. A place where I thought we could start in our conversation is let's go backwards to go forward, because I do want to ensure that we give time to where Dr. Barnes is in 2022 and what the future looks like. But I think there's some great history and setup for that conversation. Can you share with our listeners a little bit about your journey in veterinary medicine, and also, as the journey's continued, what's given you the passion that you have in your entrepreneurial ventures and your desire for joy in vet med?
Yeah, sure. Gosh, it's a long journey. Obviously I grew up with animals, as most of us did. Rode horses as a child, had lots of dogs and cats growing up, and that, kind of gave me the comfort to be around animals and whatnot that, is pretty typical of most veterinarians. Got a job as a vet assistant, kennel tech, in the 90s, and started cleaning kennels, and then became a tech assistant, vet assistant, did that. And that progressed into becoming a technician, went to tech school, and was working as a vet tech in a general practice. And just, I have a drive in me that's innate to always, want to grow and better myself and see what's next. And so went from general practice to an emergency and critical care facility. And, it was the top-notch facility in Orange County where, we ran ventilator cases, and we were doing hemodialysis cases, just crazy stuff.
Yep.
Yeah. And through that experience and doing some volunteer work with an organization called Rural Area Veterinary Services, where I was training veterinary students how to do anesthesia and, monitoring surgery and whatnot, just decided to go for going to vet school.
Yep.
But, I had 5 kids, and I just hadn't been to school in a long time. And I just thought, how in the world am I going to balance all of this? And can I even get through vet school? Am I even smart enough? I mean, I really questioned whether or not I was smart enough to, get through vet school. So I took one class at a community college, and I think I got a B in that class. I thought, well, okay, if I can pass this class with a B, perhaps I can get through vet school. And just really went through and tried to figure out what it took to get through pre-vet as quick as I could. Yep. So I took on 20 units the next semester, as many units as I possibly could to get, in through community college into university, and then transferred to university. And honestly, I got through community college without a degree. I got through the university without a degree, and into vet school without a degree. And everyone is always amazed by that, but you don't need a degree to get into vet school. You just need the prerequisites. Yep. And so I got into Colorado State University and got through vet school and graduated in 2012 with my 5 kids in tow.
Which is unbelievable. So
yeah,
I don't know how our classmates got through school with kids, and yet you had 5 of them.
I did.
Mature student by the time you decided you were going to become a veterinarian.
Yeah.
What kind of drive and what kind of that's a busy time. I can't even imagine it.
My husband and I were just talking about how most of our classmates who are married
Yes.
didn't make it through marriage,
Yeah.
let alone stayed married and had kids. So yeah, it's a challenge. It's a challenge and a commitment. So graduated
Definitely.
vet school and jumped right into practice ownership. I started a large animal practice in Montana, and wanted to do embryo transfer in cattle. So the last 2 years in vet school, I really focused on embryo transfer. I did all my externships in cattle, bovine embryo transfer. It's just so funny how your career shifts, over the years, and where I am today, it's insane. So I did, a large animal practice in Montana and went all in on that. And ultimately my husband decided that Montana looked a lot like the picture behind you. It was a frozen tundra. It was very close to the Canadian border. And he just was like, yeah, no, I don't want to make my life up here. It's too cold. We had family there. We'd spent every summer there for like 10 years. So we thought that's where we wanted to be. And ultimately he said no. So we uprooted and moved around a couple different times. I took a couple different jobs. I had loans that I had to pay back because I took out business loans to start that practice. And these are the sacrifices you make in your career when you have a family and you have a spouse, and you're trying to balance it all. And so I ended up in Arizona, and I purchased a small animal emergency practice that was nights and weekends at the time, and quickly grew that into a 24/7 practice. And that was kind of the beginning of the journey of where I am today.
Okay. Before we get in the journey of today, let's go backwards a little bit, because I think there's some gems in there for veterinary students right now that are trying to figure out what they're doing. Some of our recent grads, and some I've been on the phone with over this week, who are disenfranchised with veterinary medicine or are looking at options and opportunities going, I don't know where to go. You were going to Colorado State University. You graduated from there. You already had a plan. It sounds like starting into your third year of where you wanted to focus. Tell us a little bit about what that plan looked like to say at the end of school, okay, we're going to make a move quite a ways geography wise from Colorado up to Montana, and at the same time take on ownership with a large amount of debt, which we want to go into a little bit of details on. Where does that confidence come from, and what were some of the hurdles that you had to overcome in order to make that happen before we even jump into the small animal and see what you're doing in the world?
So, I had a lot of student loan debt. I took on all the debt. I had a large family. My husband was a car salesman. He was on commission only. So if he didn't make money, we didn't make money. And when we moved to Colorado, it was in 2008. The economy in America just tanked.
Gosh.
He was selling Toyotas, and all the Toyotas were recalled at the time. I mean, it was bad. I think at one point I even called my previous employer in California, who was a gem. And I was like, dude, I can't pay my rent. And he wrote me a check and sent me a check. He was that supportive of what I was doing. And reach out to people that you trust, and don't be afraid to ask for help, first of all, because people want to help you. That's number one. Number two, I took all the student loans. I took all the loans available to support me and my family when I was going to school. So, and I just knew that no matter what, when I got out of school, I was going to be successful. I just had that confidence that, I was going to go out and do something great. I didn't know what it was, but I was going to go out and do something great. So went up to Montana and needed to start my own practice. And obviously we didn't have any cash. I moved in with my cousin. She had 2 homes. So she moved into one home and I moved into the other. And that gave us, a little bit of a leg up to live rent free, and went to the local bank. It's Montana, it's a small town, but I went to the local bank and I said, hey, you guys need a large animal practitioner in town. The one large animal practitioner in town has stopped seeing animals, mobily. Everything has to go to his practice. So this is a needed, venture, and they agreed, and they agreed to give me a loan to start my practice.
Okay.
And so, if you never ask, the answer is always no. So they could have said no, and maybe in a larger town they would have said no, but go to the small banks, go to the locally owned banks, and talk to a lot of the board that is part of the locally owned banks. They might be the ranchers, they might be the owners of the cattle and the horses or whatever that need your services. So don't be afraid to ask.
And I'm guessing, and this is only a guess, not knowing you very well, is that you were pretty also persistent. And I would love to understand a little bit more is, what did that setup for going into that discussion look like? How prepared were you? Was there any tactics you took in to ensure that it was a yes at the end of the day?
So I did put together a business plan, and, I leaned on my friends from vet school that went through the Colorado State MBA program.
Okay.
And I said, hey, this is what I'm trying to do. Can you help me out? Can you help me put together, a financial model? And they did.
Nice.
And so I put together a financial model and put that in front of them. And, you have to look professional. You have to be prepared. And so, I think if you go in front of people and you present your case and you look professional and you sound confident, you're 3/4 of the way there. Great. The other quarter is going to be, whatever their decision is and that you have no control over.
Excellent. Mike, jump in whenever too. I could see you chomping at the
bit. There's so much. I don't even know where to go. So Cindy, so far what's jumping out at me, like, this is amazing. Both you and your husband, how like you were on the very edge of the bell curves in lots of ways for there's no other option but to succeed. Like, you're in vet school with 5 kids and the only source of income is commission based. Like, we have to make this work. So I'm curious, that pressure that can just always be there can get to be very heavy. So how did you and your husband, keep moving forward through that despite, the inevitable setbacks that come?
That's heavy. That's the hard part. There are therapists in vet school. Lean on those therapists. I tend to have a very strong constitution, and I'm very much, I had to learn to put myself first. Let's start there. I am a mother. I currently, all 5 of my kids are now married, and now I have 9 grandkids. Number 10 is on the way. I'm sure going to have a lot more by the time this is all over with. So I'm nurturing and loving, and I've always put my family first, but at some point I had to put myself first, but almost in a nurturing way, because I knew what I was doing was building this legacy that I'm going to pass on to my family. Right. But you have to learn to really, put your own oxygen mask on first so that you can take care of everyone else. So that was a learning curve for me. And I just had to, find my own balance. Going to the school therapist helped a lot, and just understanding that it was okay not to do it all and to really focus on myself. So that's what I did. I kind of just said, listen, I can't do it all at home. I can't do it all with the kids. I have to study. I have to pass this class. If I don't pass vet school, this has all been for naught, so, and a little secret, which is probably not a good secret, but a little secret, I didn't go to class a whole lot in vet school. I mean, honestly, I didn't go to class a whole lot. I studied like crazy. and I was really good at passing tests. And I don't know what that means, but they laughed a lot. They're like, "Did you even go to vet school?" I did. Sometimes they'd put posters up as a joke, like, "Have you seen this girl missing?" And they really did do that. But I found that balance. I found what worked for me, and what worked for me was I went to as much as I needed to go to school in person, and the rest of it, I watched the lectures, studied at home as much as I could. I had to figure out what balance worked for me and my family, and I passed. In our class, I ranked pretty high in my class, even though I wasn't in class every single day. So,
and I sorry to jump in, John.
Oh,
I think this is an important thing to touch on, because it's important for people to realize that you can do it differently than what most people do, right? Like missing class, traditional thinking would be like, wow, you're dropping the ball massively. And it's like, no, there's different plans and paths for different people in different circumstances. And then we can extrapolate that out into all areas of life, but that is cool. And that sort of helps answer the question. Like, I was like, how did you do it with 5 kids? Because I'm just mind blown by that. But you got to find ways. So good on you.
Yeah, you find little ways to make it work for your own personal situation, and everybody's different. So sometimes you have to break the rules.
And sometimes those rules need to be broken.
I had a long conversation with the interim dean after I graduated, and I told him, listen, we need to maybe have an online, portion, because going to class and listening to the teacher go over PowerPoint presentations is a waste of my time. When I can do that at 10 to midnight, I can go over the PowerPoint presentation, and the rest of the day, there's other things I could be doing, like externships and learning how to actually be a vet, and I can review the slides, at night. So yeah, I had long conversations with the dean about this. So
this is a whole separate episode, of which I would love to get a couple more people onto this podcast and have a great debate, because this is an important topic.
Yeah.
Episode idea right now, Cindy. In the essence of time and so much more that we need to cover today, I am going to jump us forward a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about debt briefly, because I think that also sets up into your desire for making change in the practice, as we had talked in the pre-recording. You did not have a small amount of debt. It was a substantial amount, and yet you've not been afraid of taking those chances. And this is something we speak about in terms of living an intentional life, and that conversation includes debt. What did that look like in your world as you've moved through these transition of different ownerships, and then moving into your veterinary software company and beyond?
So it would scare the living daylights out of most people. So let's see. I think I graduated vet school with about a $325,000 worth of student loan debt, US dollars. So I took the forbearance. I think you have like whatever 6 months to pay, in forbearance when you first graduate. And then I went directly into, and so Tony Bartels is a good friend of mine, and he's the VIN, student debt guru guy. So poor guy, he would just roll in his grave every time I told him everything I did, but it's okay. Sorry, Tony. I'm sorry. So I immediately went into, and he's the one that helped me with my financial model. So I got to give a shout out to him. He's a good friend. So I immediately went into income-based repayment. So when you go into income-based repayment, you're acquiring interest. So that's the first thing that everyone needs to understand. But for me, I didn't care about that. I cared about the payment. I didn't want to make the payment, and I wasn't really making any money, so I didn't have a payment. So for the first year or two, I really didn't have any payments because I wasn't really making any money per se, depending on, how you looked at it and how your taxes were done. So I went into income-based repayment, and that's kind of how I got around, not, making any payments for the first couple of years. And then when I bought my ER and I started making money, there's other ways around it that you can fiddle fart around, and, depending on what you do, you can still not make any money and still not make payments. So there's a lot of times where I didn't make any payments, where I made very minimal payments, but the interest did skyrocket. And at one point, when I finally did pay off my loans, it was like $437,000 to be exact.
Exact number.
Which was, yep, that's what it was when I paid it off in 2017. So it was 5 years after I graduated vet school.
So just to be clear, you paid off $437,000 in 5 years.
Correct. Yeah.
I'm clapping. You worked the numbers out on that one. That's impressive.
Yeah. And the plan all along, I mean, I didn't, the original plan was, just stretch it out till, I could write it off in the 20 years and then just pay the interest. But ultimately I ended up paying it off. So
did you foresee that with the eventual sale of a practice in order to pay that off? Was that the plan, or was that the thought in mind that you always kept in mind?
Yeah. I mean, I assumed that in the 20 years I would own the practice, and then in 20 years I'd be able to just pay off the, they'd write it off, forgive it, and then I just pay the interest. Yeah. Which I think it would end up being about 250, 300,000. So crazy.
I'm curious how you went about mentally keeping sane with that amount of debt, because it is something that I hear a lot of, which is very fair, is that debt weighing veterinarians down right now, which is a completely fair comment. It's a lot of money, and it's a lot of money over a long time to pay back. How did you specifically deal with that?
Well, I think if you focus on that one singular thing, like, oh my God, I've got this much debt. If you just focus on that one thing and you don't look at your career as, as a whole, and what you're going to do over the next 20 or 25 years or 30 years or however long you plan on working, that is going to weigh heavy on you, and you are going to be saddled or chained to that debt, and that's going to control you. You have to put that away and not let it control you. And you have to look at what's in front of you. What's in front of you is a myriad of opportunities. And especially today, there is so many opportunities as a veterinarian, and amazing opportunities to make amazing money, that you don't even think about that debt. Just think about what's in front of you today. Make those minimum payments, maybe make a little bit more, but that debt's going to get paid over 10 times in your career. Don't even think about it. Do not even think about it. There's so many, think about the opportunities in front of you. The debt will take care of itself.
Excellent. As a reminder, Cindy's providing opinion, not financial advice. Very strong opinion. And I absolutely concur with it. 100%. Make a plan, stick with it, go with it, and good things happen in this career. There's no doubt. Mike, anything to add to this? You share a lot of insights on debt and how do you structure
I love your take on debt, Cindy, because I agree completely, as it being a powerful tool. The thing I see and hear in you is, and you said it before, you just knew that you would be successful, and you have like a ton of confidence and conviction, so taking on the debt, that was just sort of the price of admission to get into your, to get through vet school, to get into your vet clinic. And before that even happened, you already knew you'd be successful. I guess maybe my question in there, because the debt can be scary for people. So how do we help people stop focusing on that and shift over to where you were, which was forward looking with extreme confidence?
Yeah, absolutely. So today, veterinarians are a commodity, and you are a commodity that is sought after. You are worth so much in today's business environment. Businesses are just hungry for your services, and your worth is so negotiable. You get to decide what your worth is. And so you have to sit down and figure out, okay, what do I want to make? What are my hours going to be? How much am I willing to sacrifice? What am I not willing to sacrifice? And I think that if that debt is in there, negotiate that into your contract. I wouldn't negotiate, for me personally, I wouldn't, if that's such a heavy thing to you, negotiate into your contract, but I personally wouldn't negotiate it into my contract. I'd negotiate a higher pay. Yep. And then I'd take that income and I'd put it in some sort of account that made money, right? And then take that money and pay off your debt, right? So you go get a financial advisor and figure out how to make your money work better for you and have a higher interest rate so that you're going to pay off that debt. But we are in an environment where veterinarians are such a sought after commodity, and you're worth so much money right now that you've got all the negotiation in your own hands. So make it work. Like all these practices that are being sold, and I have to be careful how I say all this, but the value in these practices that are being sold is in the veterinarians. It used to be that the value is in the clients, but really the value is if all the veterinarians leave that practice once the practice is sold, the practice is worth nothing, right? So you are negotiable, your contract and your value is highly negotiable.
Love it. Love it. Let's move to stage 3, which also incorporates veterinary medicine, veterinarians, and veterinary joy, because you have not been quiet since 2012. This is the reason we got introduced to each other, is through Shepherd Vet, a veterinary software company that you founded. Tell us how that happened, that Dr. Cindy Barnes moves from large animal to small animal emergency to software and now beyond. Where the heck did that come from, for our listeners that are going, wait a second, third curveball in 20 minutes?
I don't sit still for very long.
Oh, we can tell. We can definitely tell.
I mean, the bottom line is if I see that there is, if I see that there's a problem, immediately my brain goes to, I need to find a solution. Then I look for solutions. If there's no solution, then I go and I find a solution and I create it. And so that's basically what happened. I had a 24-hour emergency practice. I had software. I had gone through a couple different software programs, and nothing really met the needs that I had. And this was in 2015, 2016. And I basically was like, why isn't any of the software actually doing what it should do? Doesn't make any sense. Like, who's creating this software? Clearly it isn't veterinarians. And, I went on a hunt. I vetted out all these different softwares and I couldn't find anything that actually, made any sense. So I created my own software company. Went into it very, naively, didn't quite understand what it took to build a software company, the costs involved, the time involved, the commitment involved. Thought I could balance both, owning and running a 24/7 ER and building a software company. I did have a co-founder, which was my son, who was a designer, a software designer. And so he was kind of helping me run it. But, that quickly sucked up all of my time. And so ultimately, I needed to sell my ER in order to continue to fund the software company. Because you get to a point where you're like, you either need to go all in or, cut your losses.
Okay.
So I had already put quite a bit of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars into the software company. And so at that point I was like, okay, either I need to keep going or I need to just say, that was fun, but I'm done. So I decided to keep going. And so I sold my practice, and ultimately that's how I paid off my student loan debt, as I paid off the debt. So that was great.
Yes.
And then the rest of it all went into my software company. My husband was like, oh, wait a minute. We did all this. We worked all, got to this point in our life, and you took all this money we made, and now you're putting it into a company that you don't even know is going to survive or succeed. And what? And I just said to him, listen, Linda. I said, I got us to this point. If this fails, I'm just going to go start another practice and do it all over again. And, it'll be fine. And he was like, okay, I trust you, sort of. So that's what we did.
That's what you did. So in the last few years, you've building out this software program. You've since sold the software program.
Yeah.
But before we jump into that, and we're coming to the end of the time, which I knew this is exactly what was going to happen. I think the goal of the software and the way you described it to me in pre-recording and what you're now taking on next is really important. And Mike reiterated it at the start of our pre-recording discussion, is vets deserve joy.
Yeah.
Such a great line.
Yeah.
We could say veterinary professionals, but in this sense, you saw a need. What does Shepherd Vet look like in that fashion? And where is that carrying you forward in 2022 and beyond?
So, the bottom line is, how does software contribute to the joy, in your practice? And there's, you're in front of that computer all day long when you're practicing medicine, and it can either really weigh you down or it can contribute to the joy that medicine brings. Like, I just got back from working 4 overnight shifts in ER, and I still practice medicine, and I still love it. I really love it. I love figuring out what's wrong with animals and helping them get better. And I love when technicians are like, that's really cool. You just taught me something new, and that's a new procedure, or that's a new medicine, or, and I just love what I do. And I'm very sad that the industry has kind of taken this negative shift, and that, that we have this high suicide rate, and how, that we even need organizations like Not One More Vet, and shout out to you guys for even having that resource out there. But how does software contribute to that? So you're in front of your computer all day long, right? And so my goal with Shepherd is, I want to make every step of the medical record and that whole aspect simplified, and I want to add to that process. I don't want to take away from it. I want to contribute. I want to make it easy. I want to make it simplified, and I want to add joy to your day. And through that, I want to contribute to your career. I want you to capture your charges so that, you have that income, that disposable income, so you can take a vacation, so you can pay your staff better, so that, you can add another associate and not have to work yourself to death, so that you can actually enjoy your career. You deserve joy. Your team deserves joy. And software does absolutely play a part in that. And so every part of Shepherd, every part of that medical record, from the estimate to the SOAP to the discharge instructions, we have broken down that aspect from a veterinary diagnostic approach, and created the software so that we can bring joy back into the practice.
Fantastic. Such a conscious way and an iteration on a project which is so important in veterinary medicine. There's one little piece of the big puzzle, but if you don't have your PMS system properly set up and or you're going with the wrong one, wow, does it equal frustration and time and delays and everything else that goes on with the burnout that we see in veterinary medicine. So
absolutely.
Mike, before we come to a conclusion and move on to our impact round, anything in final there?
Oh man, yes. I'll try to keep this short because I've got, I think, like 3 things to say on here. So one, on the software, I mean, really it's just removing the resistance. And whenever anyone can spend time in their gifts. So presumably most veterinarians, one of their gifts is helping animals. And when you're in that gift zone, it gives you energy, right? Like, I don't think anyone gets depleted by being in with a puppy, and even the cases that are challenging, it's still, what brings us joy. So if we can just remove as much of the other stuff as possible, I think it's brilliant to let vets get in that joyful space and be energized. A few other things, this is more comments to you. Kudos on betting on yourself. Like, that's a common theme all the way through. And I really think, more people need to do that instead of delegating their future success or future happiness to someone else. Like, you grabbed it, took charge of it. You and your husband and your family went all in on it. And then the third thing, selling the ER to move into software, amazing forward vision, but also amazing to be able to let go of something that was also good, right? But to be able to let go of that and say, that was great, but the time has come to move on. I will let go of it. And I feel a lot of people sometimes stop the forward progress because they can't let go of what they're holding on to. So there it was in like super quick to try to keep this on time, but wow, Cindy, great work on everything.
I like the full circle. Very good.
Mike is our philosopher. He's our philosopher, and he's getting better and better by the episode. Listen to him go.
Yeah. Awesome.
With that, everyone, we need to move to the impact round. So we're going to switch gears here a little bit, Cindy. All of our episodes end with some quick questions for you. And our first question of this episode is, are you a cat or a dog person?
Oh my gosh. I'm in all of the above. I had 5 dogs. One I just recently euthanized. So I am everything. I've got dogs, I got cats, I got chickens, I got horses. I love them all. I'm not an either or.
If you had to choose one, just a little bit more,
it would be dogs.
Oh, I was trying. I was like, I couldn't get it in. I knew she was going dog. True or false? I knew I wanted to be a veterinarian since I was a kid.
No, didn't know. Nope, false.
False. All right.
Yeah, everyone always thinks I knew since I was a kid. No, definitely didn't know that.
Nope. How would your friends describe what you do for a living?
Gosh. It's funny. I think they think I just euthanize animals.
That's a new one for
crazy.
us.
I know. I think it's because I worked, it's a long story, but they call me the Terminator. I worked at a facility one time where I euthanized a lot of animals on a regular basis. And so I got this nickname called the Terminator, and it kind of stuck. I know it's a horrible thing.
These are the things you learn on podcasts. Now Dr. Burns is known as the Terminator throughout the industry. That's going to stick. It's there.
It's
their
there.
title, the Terminator.
The Terminator.
What is your favorite hobby?
So I love gardening, but my favorite hobby is my horses. I've ridden horses my entire life, showed competitively in my junior career and a little bit in college. Yes, I rode for my college when I was in pre-vet with 5 kids and competed, nationally, won many ribbons.
Nice.
So yeah, I still have 4 horses at home, and we're in the middle of building an indoor arena since I moved to the Pacific Northwest and it rains all the time. I didn't realize since living in Arizona, now I live in Seattle area, that I need an indoor arena. So yeah, my horses are my hobby.
Beautiful. What in the world are you most grateful for?
My family, my husband, my children, and now my grandbabies. Oh my Lord.
That's
my
a lot of
grandbabies are, I'm so in love with my grandbabies. I spoil them rotten. I could have them at my house all day, every day, and just not get enough of them.
Nice. Love it. Well, we have quickly come to the end of our episode, Cindy. Thank you for sharing your knowledge and your wisdom over the past couple of decades within veterinary medicine. And really, in the big picture, I think about it, you graduated in 2012. You have accomplished so much in such a short time. And I really believe that there are some words of wisdom to be shared today that people are going to latch on to. We've covered a large gamut and really impressive. That's 9 years since you graduated and what you've accomplished already. And what is coming up, I am excited to follow your journey forward still, as we talked about.
Big things ahead.
Big things ahead. Definitely sounds like it. If people want to reach out to you, learn more about you, what are the best ways that you can be reached at?
I tell everybody they can find me on Instagram. I don't even know my handle. It's like Cindy Barnes DVM.
Perfect.
Yeah.
We'll find it in the show notes.
Yeah. Instagram's the best way to find me, or on LinkedIn. Okay. Yeah. Just Cindy Barnes DVM on LinkedIn. Those are the 2 best ways to find me.
Excellent. Mike, any words at the end?
Just thank you, Cindy. This is amazing. I'll have to connect with you sometime to learn about your time machine that allows you to get 30 hours in a day, because it's crazy impressive what you've accomplished.
Agreed.
Oh, man.
As with all of our... Oh, go ahead.
No, I'm hopeful that I can inspire the young generation to go out there and change this industry for the better, and because there's so much work to be done.
Agreed. Well, let's continue with that. Our last word goes to you. So what message do you want to leave for the veterinary community?
Yeah. I think the overarching theme in my life and when I speak with veterinarians is, don't be afraid to go and do something different and unique and chase after your dreams. If it's going to cost you financially, go take out that loan. Ask friends and family. If it's something different and unique in the industry and you think that maybe, you're not sure if it's going to be successful, don't be afraid, and don't listen to the people around you that say that this is not worthy, or that, it's going to fall flat on its face. I've had people tell me that you can't build a software company. All these big legacy, software companies are going to shut you down and run you out of town. And look at, here I am, a 50-year-old woman with 9 grandkids, just graduated vet school in 2012, and I have a software startup company that's successful. Most startups, fail, and mine hasn't. And, so believe in yourself, find people to support you. Don't worry about the debt. You're going to be successful. Ask for help, and don't be afraid to go out and change this industry for the better.
Thank you for listening to the Veterinary Project Podcast. As a recap, on behalf of our hosts, the Veterinary Project Podcast will be releasing new episodes weekly. So be sure to tune in as we bring you more conversations aimed at helping you enjoy a life well lived. If you enjoyed what you heard on the show and you want to stay in the know, please like, love, and or subscribe to the podcast on the listening platform of your choosing, as we're available on all the usual suspects. If you know of others that may benefit from these conversations, we'd love it if you please share the show with them, as this will help us grow our community to reach more and more veterinary professionals. Speaking of which, if you are a veterinary professional and would like to get connected with more like-minded individuals who are joining us on this journey, please send an email to the veterinaryprojectpodcast@gmail.com, and we'll invite you to be a part of our private Facebook group. General feedback, requests for information, or perhaps requests to be a guest on the show can also be sent to the veterinaryprojectpodcast@gmail.com. Dr. Michael Bugg and Dr. Jonathan Light, thank you for listening to the show, and we'll catch you again next week for another episode of the Veterinary Project Podcast. Bye for now.